on the laryngeal muscle. What tumor would affect striated muscle? So, dogs sometimes get laryngeal rhabdomyosarcoma. This was an example of, this is a bad picture, but this was a tumor on the endocardial surface of the heart. So this is a cardiac rhabdomyosarcoma. And the point being, rhabdomyosarcomas are malignant tumors of striated muscle origin, which can be skeletal muscle or heart. So this is one which is cool because, what organ is this? Urinary bladder. So yeah, this is the urinary bladder. And I say it's cool because the urinary bladder doesn't even have striated muscle. But this is one of those things, and like, they don't really know why it happens, but you actually get rhabdomyosarcomas within the urinary bladder. Yes?
If it doesn't originate from striated muscle, why do you call it the same thing?
Because it is striated muscle. No. I didn't say it doesn't originate from striated muscle. The urinary bladder in its normal state does not contain striated muscle. So why are you having a tumor of striated muscle origin somewhere where striated muscles don't even normally exist?
That's the $1 million question.
That's the question. There's speculations, theories, multi-potential stem cells, but they kind of really don't know. Does someone have a question?
I was just gonna say something to that effect.
Oh, what were we gonna say? Oh, that about stem
I
cells.
just learned
I think that's the most.
stem cells, and that it seems like cancer cells will turn on the genes to transform and
Yeah.
less differentiated. So,
And it's not so much that it's less differentiated, it's just completely different. Like, it's not what's normally there. And I'm sure there's some other examples of where that happens. But, it's all theories or trying to figure it out, but this one they really haven't. But it's a very well recognized entity in animals, particularly dogs. And St. Bernards are overrepresented. And it's called botryoid rhabdomyosarcoma. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like grapes. So botryoid looks like clusters. Yes.
So does the exception always occur in the bladder, or does it happen in other smooth muscle areas?
For the striated muscle tumor, the bladder is the only one that's coming to my mind. Another example is not rhabdomyosarcoma. It just came to me. Extraskeletal osteosarcomas, mammary osteosarcomas occur in dogs. There's no bone, so it does happen. This is just one of those examples. And the only thing I can think about is some type of multipotent stem cell, and then there's cells can kind of change what they do. Like you have a, what's it called, mesenchymal transition sometimes of epithelial cells to mesenchymal cells. So it's whatever may stimulate, I think that's actually another theory, something else stimulates, a subset of cells to just start being something else. Okay? So poorly understood, but that's very characteristic. So this is an example of a rhabdomyosarcoma. You have these elongated spindle cells. Frequently you'll get multinucleated cells and giant cells in these tumors. Okay, here's a mitotic figure. This kind of spindly look with these variable cell types and marked mesocytosis and karyosis kind of make you start thinking along those lines. And you may or may not be able to see striations. This is an example which is a lot clearer for a strap cell. And strap cells are I meant to put a granulosa cell tumor in there and call it somebody's, I forgot. But anyway, strap cells are characteristic features of rhabdomyosarcoma. And this is a perfect example of a strap cell. They're these very elongated cells with rows of nuclei. All right? Everybody good? Okay. So, muscle tumors, special stains, immunohistochemistry. And sometimes, so this is a kind of poorly differentiated aggressive tumor, but sometimes they're not so ugly looking. And muscle can look like muscle. So one thing you may have to differentiate is smooth muscle from striated muscle, or muscle from some other mesenchymal neoplasm. But these are some of the tools you can use. PTAH, or phosphatungstic acid hematoxylin, is a special stain that actually stains the cross striations. That's great if you have cross striations, but the less differentiated the tumor cells are, the less likely you are to have striations, so it wouldn't do any good. The common immunohistochemistry you do, there are others, but Desmond and muscle-specific actin. So Desmond stains all muscle, so striated muscle and smooth muscle. So at least if you did that, you could confirm that it is of muscle origin. And then you can put a muscle-specific actin and smooth muscle actin. And smooth muscle actin is specific. I don't know why it's not on there. That's why I'm looking crazy. Smooth muscle actin is specific for smooth muscles, and that's a way to differentiate. And myoglobin is also specific for striated muscle, but only present in well-differentiated muscles. Okay, any questions on rhabdomyosarcoma? You got laryngeal and botryoid. Those are kind of the distinct ones for dogs. All right. So what is this? Papilloma. See how it has the little frondy things on there? Hopefully you can see them. Papillomas tend to be self-limiting, and frequently they will regress on their own, or you can do an autogenous vaccine where you grind it up and re-inject it back into the body so it can form an immune response quicker and get rid of it. So we've already looked at this, but what I really want to focus on is the difference between a spontaneous papilloma versus a viral-induced papilloma. Okay? So they look the same on low magnification, but there are certain features we look at to try to determine if they are of viral origin, and there are going to be 3 of them. So one of them is prominent keratohyalin granules. So these basophilic granules are very, very prominent. The other is the presence of coilocytes. So coilocytes are the neoplastic epithelial cells that are very large. They have a clear, distended cytoplasm, like here, and those are called coilocytes. Okay? So if you look at some of the other cells, they don't really look like that. And the last thing is the presence of viral inclusions. All right, so these, can y'all appreciate the inclusions without me pointing? Or I need to point. So this is normal. Well, they're very prominent nucleoli and stipples. Chromatin, so look at these compared to this. So here's a perfect intranuclear inclusion in here. Okay, so this is a DNA virus, so you expect to have an intranuclear inclusion.
Question.
Yes,
You were saying these characteristics are to differentiate what?
spontaneous from viral. So the 3 things that we showed are characteristic for viral induced papillomas. Sarcoid, what is associated with sarcoids? Huh?
Horses and
No, what, like virus? Bovine papillomavirus. Okay, so bovine papillomavirus has been associated with sarcoid development in horses. Bovine papillomavirus has also been associated with Brackenfern-associated neoplasms in the urinary bladder of cattle. Okay, have y'all learned about these things already? A little bit. Y'all took virology?
tomorrow.
Okay. So it all ties in eventually. Any questions? All right. So what organ is this? The spleen. Very good. So you have lots of masses all over the spleen. With lymphoma, usually the spleen is uniformly thickened and enlarged. So these kind of look like lymphomas because they're white masses, but just knowing that this, what lymphoma does in the spleen, I wouldn't be on my differential list. And y'all, I think y'all have the PowerPoint anyway, but what y'all think is good? If I said it's a Burmese mountain dog, it's the acidic sarcoma. Okay. So we talked about the round cell tumors before, I think. Does anyone remember what some of them were? The different round cell neoplasms.
Oh, lymphoma
You gonna yell it out now?
and histosarcoma.
That is true. That is two of them. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, I put a review article on Blackboard. It's really good because it talks about a lot of the things that we already talked about. So I would like for y'all to read that. Okay, so we'll move on. So round cell tumors include, if you think about your white blood cells, that's how I say to remember. So lymphoma, mast cell tumor, plasma cell tumor, histiocytoma or histiocytic sarcoma. Those are your main round cell tumors. Okay. So some round cell tumors are more likely to have multinucleated cells, which pushes me to one diagnosis over the other. So here's a multinucleated cell, here's a multinucleated cell. That may be something. So histiocytic sarcoma is in that category, and also plasma cell tumors. So anytime I see multinucleated cells in the round cell neoplasm, I go that way. So one interesting thing about this is these don't look all that round necessarily. They're kind of doing whatever. Even though you can see some roundness, but this would be one where I'd be like, what is this? And sometimes that's just the way it is. Everything does not read the book. Everything is not always going to be perfect, but you got to put kind of everything together. All right, so this is the malignant form of a histiocytic tumor, and this is the nice little benign form. So we talked about cutaneous histiocytoma also, if I'm not mistaken. What was characteristic about this as far as the age of the animal affected? They're young. These look like little red buttons. You hear them called button tumor. Mast cells look a lot like this too. They'll be red. So these tend to be, oh, I had another picture. Okay. These tend to be like on the distal limb. That's where I most commonly get them from. So these are called the button tumor, most commonly in dogs less than 4 years of age. They are benign, but they can have a very high mitotic index. And another feature of this cutaneous histiocytoma is that it can be present in the epithelium, or like in the epidermis or the follicular epithelium, which doesn't seem right because it's a benign tumor, but that's one of the features of this tumor. Okay, even though it's not malignant, it can form little nests of cells in the epithelium. They typically spontaneously regress, and this is a neoplasm of Langerhans cell origin. Can anyone tell me what Langerhans cells are? They're the antigen-presenting cells in the skin. So they're dendritic cells of the skin. Okay. So cutaneous histiocytoma is considered to be derived from Langerhans cells. When you just say histiocyte, that is talking about the resident tissue macrophages of the skin. I might even think about that with the nomenclature, but this is from the Langerhans cells, which some people will call them histiocytes, but they're really dendritic cells. I don't think you really need to know all this. I just kind of put it in there. Just some of the immunohistochemical expression of it, so you can just have it there for your own reference. I won't ask you questions about that. They do express E-cadherin, unlike other dendritic cells, so that is a common immunohistochemical marker that may be put on there to try to say, is it a histiocytoma or something else? So these are, excuse me. Nice round cells. Now here we can really tell they're round. Here's a mitotic figure. Remember, cutaneous histiocytomas are benign, but they have a very high mitotic index. It's just what it is. And I put this here to show the beautiful little reniform nucleus. So it looks like a kidney. It's indented. That's a feature of cells of monocytic origin. So macrophages, histiocytes, Langerhans cells, they all kind of, and they won't all have it, but you'll see some nuclei that look like that, and that can lead you to your diagnosis. So this is a very characteristic feature that you see on electron microscopy, which is only in Langerhans cells, nothing else. Y'all know what this is? Perfect granules. They look like tennis rackets. So it's just really cool. They don't even know what their function is, but if you ever see this, it's a Langerhans cell. What's something else with the name Langerhans in it? Islets of Langerhans. And where are they? And what cells are they composed of? Alpha, beta, and delta. And which one of those produces insulin? Beta. Very good. And what does alpha produce? Glucagon. And what does delta produce? Somatostatin. Good. All right. Moving right along. So we talked about this already, and the two most common originating sites in the dog, and what were they? Spleen and the right atrium. Okay. Angiosarcomas, very aggressive neoplasms. You don't want them. Very widely spread. Here you have a case where it's just all over the mesentery, and I'm sure it's in the liver too. So it's everywhere. They have a high rate of metastasis. Breed predilection is German Shepherds and Golden Retrievers. Any questions on hemangiosarcoma? Alright. So mast cell tumor. You see, it kind of looks like the cutaneous histiocytoma. They're like little elevated red nodules. Oops, I was going to ask you. Well, so this is a cytology, and you have this round cells with they call them metachromatic granules. You also have these cells here. What are these cells? Eosinophils. Mast cells and eosinophils have a love relationship. You usually find them together. Okay? So if you have a round cell tumor and you see a lot of eosinophils, your first thought needs to be mast cell tumor. Like, let's say that it was a poorly granulated mast cell tumor, you weren't sure, but eosinophils makes you first think about that. You can also have eosinophils with your T-cell lymphomas, for whatever reason. What's a special stain you can use to highlight the granules if they're not really showing up very well? So Giemsa. Okay, that's the most common. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about mast cell tumors. They are pretty common. Boxers, like we said, they kind of get everything. But here's some other breeds that have been shown to be predisposed, but you can get them on any dog. They're most commonly in the skin, but they can develop anywhere. They can be single or multicentric, and other animals do get them as well. Cats get them. They're most commonly on the skin in cats, but in cats you're more likely to get them in the viscera. So I want to talk a little bit about the grading scale for cutaneous mast cell tumor. So this is the very well-established grading scale that we've been using for decades. It's called the Patnick system, but we're kind of getting away from that, which I mentioned before, and going to this two-tier grading system. So we're going to talk about both. So with grade, so you have grade 1, 2, and 3. Grade 1 is the excellent prognosis, grade 3 is a poor prognosis, and grade 2, like, you just don't know what to do with it because it can be anywhere along that spectrum. So grade 1 is well differentiated, and well demarcated, and is confined to the superficial dermis. So it's just right there on top. It doesn't even extend into the deep dermis. That's grade 1, all is well. Grade 2 is also well differentiated, and the cells look just as good in that tumor as they do in grade 1. There's no mitoses, there's no nothing. They're just nice looking mastotumors, but it's the location that tells you it's grade 2. They extend deep down into the dermis to the level of the subcutis. They're difficult to excise, commonly recur, and may metastasize. And mast cells tend to form in rows. So when it's a little larger and going a little deeper, you're more likely to have more rows stretching out. So that's why it's difficult to excise. Grade 3 is poorly differentiated with a high mitotic index and other features of malignancy. Very, very bad tumor to have. Okay. The 2-tier grading system now that it was actually implemented or proposed by Matty Kupel, who's a pathologist at Michigan State. He does a lot of immunohistochemical work in general and mast cell tumor research. So he proposed this, and it's definitely been catching on. I actually use this over the other one. So with the 2-tier grading system, you either have low grade or high grade. And high grade is determined by the presence of any one of these features that are listed. So either or, you can have one of these or multiple. But at least 7 mitotic figures within 10 high power fields, and high power fields is like 400x, the 40x with the 10x eyepiece. T. At least 3 multinucleated cells with 3 nuclei or more in 10 high power fields. At least 3 bizarre nuclei in 10 high power fields. And if you have consistent karyomegaly in at least 10% of the population, all these findings have been shown to be